Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just letting some people in from the waiting room. So I think we will start. Good afternoon. Welcome to the HERD walkthrough. My name is Nicole Anderson, and I am Associate Director in Alumni Career Services, which is a program that works in the Career Center as well as in Alumni Relations. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I'm assuming we have a lot of current students on the call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some housekeeping items for our webinar today. First of all, you should know that this webinar is being recorded, and you can feel free to, turn your video off. You don't need to have your video on like you might do in other Zoom webinars. In order for you to ask me questions, I'm going to ask that you put those in the chat button, use the chat option, and my colleague Susanna Kren, who is behind the scenes working the technology today, will collect the questions as we go through the HERD platform, and if there's something that is relevant in the moment, she will ask the question and I can address it then, or she may choose to hold off with that particular question until the end. And there will be plenty of time to ask questions at the end. The presentation part of this should only be about a half hour, and depending upon how many questions we get and how long-winded I get. And then I'm open to addressing questions right up until 4 o'clock if people want to chat until then. So I think those are my housekeeping items. So I want to start out with some context here before we actually jump into the platform. I'm going to start out actually by with the basics. So what is the HERD? The HERD is Tufts' new platform for mentoring and networking, and it is for alumni and students. It is for alumni to student networking and mentoring, where alums are the mentors and students are the mentees, but it is also for alumni to alumni mentoring and networking. So there are many alums who are going to be on the platform to serve in both roles as mentor and mentee. And I should actually add that as students, and I'm sure that there are many students on the call today, and actually I'm going to ask you to type that into chat in a moment. Well, actually, let me ask you to type that into the chat right now. If you don't mind typing into chat whether you are a student or an alum, that would be helpful to me. And Susanna's going to let me know who we have on the call. So I sort of have a breakdown and know how to direct, how to tailor this webinar. But what I was just going to mention is, so, what is the HERD? We've got alums. Alums, I think a question that came in before the webinar. Is this all alums, or have alums chosen, to be in this platform? Alums have chosen to be in this platform to offer mentoring, but also to receive mentoring, to be mentees. And so everyone in this platform should be answering the call. They should be responding to you. And that's the reason why we have, why we are facilitating mentoring and networking through the HERD, through this new high-touch platform, as opposed to LinkedIn and some other online communities. And with that, I should say we still want you using LinkedIn. We are still going to encourage you to use other online communities to connect with people in your career exploration. But the HERD is high-touch, and you're going to see that in a moment.
And Nicole, just so you know, we are have a student audience today.
Okay.
So, mostly undergrads and a few graduate students.
Okay, well. Great. So that's helpful. So as students, I also want to mention that you can serve as mentors. And in fact, if we have rising sophomores on the line, you can reach out to upper class upperclassmen on this platform, to ask them questions about how they chose their major, to ask them questions about how they found their internships. So keep that in mind. This mentoring platform is a place where, as a student, you could potentially offer mentoring. I know that you're probably on this call thinking, well, I'm looking for mentoring. I want to be a mentee. But recognize that as alums and students can explore all the users on the platform. So with that, let's talk a little bit about networking versus mentoring, and this is going to provide good context for this platform. Networking, scary word. In fact, I like to actually use sort of the term career conversation. Networking, I think, can create a lot of different images in one's mind, like live networking at events with lots of people that requires you to be an extrovert or a really good conversationalist, and while that might be one way to think about it, when we talk about networking, professional networking or career networking, we're talking about an activity that you engage in to learn more about a career field or career fields of interest. So you can have a conversation about that. You can have a low stakes, casual conversation about that. You probably already have with friends, with family members, and it didn't even feel like it was networking. Mentoring is, I want to say, longer term, or it is about a relationship that you create with someone that is a comfortable relationship where communication is easy, where you get to know a person maybe over a length of time. And mentoring is not something, we hear about mentoring programs and we hear about getting matched, applying to a mentoring program, getting matched with someone. I really think that a mentoring relationship has to happen organically. And even though one could be matched in a mentoring relationship, it might not work out. And you might find that, you don't have a good connection with the person. So I think that actually mentoring, a good mentoring relationship, an effective mentoring relationship can start out as someone you've met through networking, someone that you've met, in what was supposed to be maybe a one-time meeting, but you really related to that person. You got along with that person and you thought, I want to continue talking to that person. Well, quite frankly, networking isn't just a one-time thing either. Networking is not about the first meeting. It's about how you leverage a first conversation or meeting. But let's say you want this networking relationship to exist over time. You get along with someone, that person likes talking to you, likes coaching you, likes providing advice. Then over time, what has developed is probably a mentoring relationship. We don't have much time to really get into more about networking versus mentoring, but what I wanted to do was to sort of provide some definition, and also to sort of talk about what we're calling flash mentoring, which here I've defined as like a 1 or 2 time connection with someone who can offer expertise in a career field of interest. And it's very much like networking. The one thing that I want you to know about the difference between networking and mentoring is networking is usually something where you give and take. So as a student, that might feel like, well, what can I give? I'm only a student. What can I provide? Well, I just talked about the idea of an older student providing internship advice or advice on majors to a younger student. But in a networking relationship, particularly when you have career experience, you do have something to offer the person who you're networking with. You just might not think about that because you're going in looking for something. Flash mentoring, the concept of flash mentoring, particularly in this platform, is about you as students reaching out to an alum who has offered to help you. You don't have to offer them anything. You can reach out to them and they will mentor you. They will provide professional advice, career advice, help you to explore a field, and they're not looking for anything in return. I want to talk about a quick concept here, number 4, this personal board of advisors, and then we're going to jump into the herd. My colleagues and I want you to connect with a lot of different people across your undergraduate or graduate education. And we want you to network with and connect with alums and faculty and staff at the university, and even to go beyond the Tufts community and connect with others. And over time, you'll probably identify, if you haven't already, 3 or 4 people who have been great helpers to you. And whether you call them mentors or not, they're people who you want to keep, you want to connect, you want to keep in connection with. We call this a personal board of advisors or a developmental network. So if you approached this webinar today thinking that you were searching for one mentor who is going to mentor you for the rest of your life, that's not necessarily what this platform is for. In fact, we want you to think of mentoring and networking as, something that's a little bit more fluid. It's, it is trying to engage with people who can be helpful to you and keeping up with them, cultivating a relationship, so that when you have questions, you don't have just one person to go to. You have a whole board of advisors to go to, so to speak. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, go over to the herd, share my screen again. All right. So, Susanna, any questions right now after my intro on networking versus mentoring?
Not at the moment, but
okay,
as Nicole mentioned, though, if anyone has questions throughout, I'll be keeping an eye on that. So feel free to enter them in the chat, either to everyone, or if you prefer, you can send them just privately to me.
Yep. Great. So the herd, currently in the herd, we're just about to reach our initial goal of 2,500 members of the herd. And a better breakdown is we have a little over 1,800 alums in the herd from the Schools of Art, Science, Engineering, and SMFA, both undergraduate alums and graduate alums. And we have over 500 students, undergraduate and graduate students from Art, Science, Engineering, and School of the Museum of Fine Arts. So this is a good number. And what I want to do first is actually to sort of like go through some of the nuts and bolts. And so if you've played with this, if you've already been in the herd, this might, be too basic, redundant, but I'm sure there are people on the webinar who maybe this is the first time they're seeing this, or they haven't had much time to experiment. So the first thing that I want to show, this is my student profile. The first thing I want to point out is up here, the question mark. If you have any questions about sort of the technical aspects of the platform, if you click on that button there, and you'll see that what you'll get is a little window. How do I report a bug? Contact us. This goes directly to both the people who host the platform. It's a company called People Grove, but I also get this, and another one of my colleagues who works in alumni relations, we get those questions too. So that's how you should ask questions that are, technology related, access related, platform related. Do not contact Tufts Technology Services because they're not the people who are supporting the platform. It's us and the vendor. So very easy to ask for help there. You can also ask for help from any of the career advisors, the staff who work in the Career Center. So if you're meeting with them virtually over the summer, they are open, by the way, and doing appointments, or when the fall hits, you can ask them for advice on how to use this platform. They are really excited to be showing this to students and helping them to really leverage it. The next thing I want to point out really is that you want to go into your settings and make sure that your communication preferences are set so that it's so that you're getting contacted through the email that you prefer. All of your Tufts emails were uploaded into this system. If you prefer to be using your personal email, then you need to go into your preferences and set that. or forwarding, one email to the other. So make sure that your preferences are set so that you're getting things directly sent to you in your preferred email. You also want to make sure that your profile is complete. The more complete and detailed your profile is, the easier it's going to be for an alum to look at your profile and to help you. So you might be thinking, well, it's more important for the alums, to have detailed profiles. Well, it's really important for you to have a detailed profile so that they can really they can sort of understand where you're coming from, what your level of sort of savviness is with certain careers or your major or projects, if you've done internships, if you've had any part-time jobs. So, this is my profile. And actually, when I signed on to the platform, I did the sign on using my LinkedIn profile. So I had my LinkedIn profile populate my Herd profile. If you choose to do that, what I'm going to advise you to do is to go through and clean it up, because it's sort of copying and pasting from different fields in LinkedIn. And you want to make sure that, there's punctuation, that there's if you had things that were bulleted, like I have things that are bulleted, or I'm using little triangles or arrows here, that same formatting carried over into People Grove, into the Herd platform. It doesn't necessarily do it in a perfect way. So you should go through your profile and clean it up and add, like additional information. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself. I haven't taken advantage of that. If I were a job seeker or an internship seeker, I would absolutely fill that out. It's similar on LinkedIn. You have an option to sort of have a summary. And actually, let me go. Nope, this is my summary up here, the about. But you have an option to say a little bit more about yourself in this additional information section. And that's a useful place to add things that might not seem to fit elsewhere in your profile. And students should have a lot of things that maybe don't classically fit into some of the sections of a profile. You might have independent or freelance work, or projects, or research, or volunteerism that maybe doesn't seem to fit in elsewhere. So make sure that your profile is complete, because that's going to help alums help you. And make sure that your settings are such that, let's see. Let me go back. Okay. Make sure your settings are the way that you want them. So let's go back to sort of this, my home screen, and we can see that immediately what it's done is, and it does, when you first signed up, you probably saw that there was an immediate match. There's an algorithm that matched you to someone, in the Herd who meets the, who meets the criterion that you input when you signed up, when, the things that you might have mentioned that you're looking for help with, the things that the career fields that you're interested in. And so the person that it matched me with is an alum named Jessica Sutton, who's working at Advancing Real Change. And she's a 2005 alum who majored in international relations. And the kinds of things that she is offering to help with are listed here. Now, while she's offering to help with these items, there perhaps are other things that she is open to discussing. The here to help with, I think this is nice, but you should know that it doesn't mean that the alum is only limited to helping with these three things. She is, I think feels like she would be especially good at offering her experience on, she basically taking a gap year. As she has worked in consulting, she could conduct a case mock interview with you. And she is, probably has a graduate degree, although I don't see that. Let me actually go to her profile. If we go to Jessica's profile, she also, she probably has a law degree. If we scroll down, yeah, she went to Boston University School of Law. So she's also open to talking about applying to graduate school, specifically to law school. So she's a good example of someone who, knows what she, can best advise about, but also just recognize that any alum on here, they're open to other, they're probably open to other possibilities. So don't think so, interpret what she's chosen as a very narrow area. And we can see also too that she's interested in, or her field is legal and law enforcement, which that's sort of a title that the platform provided for us. But the legal field probably more so than law enforcement itself. So we can see that she has provided her experience. And then, she also, help topics. She's offering to help on a lot more than we saw in the snapshot on my homepage. And then we can see that she also identifies with the following groups or programs, LGBTQ+, so she's open to talking about that. You can ask her about that. She may be a member of that community. She may be an ally in that community. She may do work with that community professionally. She may do work with that community outside of her career work. It could be something she does avocationally. So that's Jessica in a nutshell. And her death penalty defense attorney is her job title. So a really fascinating connection. I think, I'd want to message her. Before I move over to message, though, I want to mention a couple of other things on this first screen right here. You can see that I have bookmarked some people. These are people who, and I can bookmark Jessica and add her to my list. These are people who I want to remember. So in the larger scope of the herd and this platform, it's not like Facebook, it's not like LinkedIn, where you're trying to rack up a certain number of friends or connections. You are making connections with people. You're going to message people. You're going to talk to people on the phone, and you're going to talk to people through Zoom. But it's not about, trying to get 100 connections, so to speak. You can, once you've made a connection with someone, you'll be able to see, when you talk to that person, how you talk to that person, if it was through this system, if it was through email, if you did a phone call, if you had a video meeting. But keeping track of people, bookmarks are the way that you might keep track of people who you want to contact as you're doing searches. And we're going to explore the community in a minute and do some searches. There's also this nurture your connections section. So this is important, and this is what we mean by a high-touch platform. This is a reminder that, Sarah sent me a message on February 11th. Boy, that was a long time ago. I really need to get back to Sarah. The system actually nudges people. It nudges those alums that you've reached out to remind them to get back to you. And so that's why it's different than LinkedIn, for example. This system, there's sort of someone behind the system, and that person is me, setting reminders to some of the folks that maybe you've reached out to but haven't gotten back to you. And don't take it personally if they haven't gotten back to you. People are busy, but they are also reminded, the alums are reminded, that if they get too busy and they feel like they can't volunteer, they can, put their profile on hold for a little while. So this nurture your connections, you should be checking this to make sure that you're keeping up with the people that you've reached out to. The tasks completed section is great in that when you are working, when you're connecting with someone, for example, if I decide to message Jessica and I can set up some goals together. We can set up some tasks for me to complete if I'm looking to learn more about Jessica's work. And so within that relationship that I have with Jessica, once we start a connection, that there'll be a section to create a success plan where I can put in notes about our conversations, where I can put in some goals and share those with Jessica, and where I can even upload documents like my resume or a cover letter for her to take a look at. That's not showing up right now because she and I haven't made a connection. But this is the way that I would connect with her for the first time. And you can see that it gives me a little bit of a snapshot over here, so I remember what Jessica's done as I'm thinking about writing my first message, or what's my first outreach going to be. This is the scary part, or this is the part that we get a lot of questions about. Like, what should we be saying? What should we be writing? Well, believe it or not, the system provides something for you. Now, I'm going to suggest that you tailor this, but this is, a sample. And imagine you're Jessica, and Jessica gets the same, for the same standard form email time after time. She's going to start to, not just get sick of that particular form email, but she's going to start to maybe really be impressed by the people who've taken the opportunity to tailor the email, the message a bit. So I guess what I'm trying to say is try not to be lazy, and try to look at Jessica's profile. And this first question, would you mind sharing your thoughts on networking? That's actually I don't really love that. In fact, as the person who oversees this platform, I think I'm going to change that. But I'm excited to learn what I can be doing to improve my networking experiences. Do you have any specific tips you might recommend? I think what I would probably say to Jessica is, hi, Jessica. I am looking to, learn more about people in your field, to learn about what a death penalty defense attorney does. Because, and then there's the why are you interested? And maybe you you sort of list a couple of questions, to give her a taste of what you're really looking to discuss in a meeting. So best practices for networking and for career conversations. You want to start off your initial outreach. It needs to be succinct. The alums are busy. You want to try to be concrete. Make sure that they know what you're asking. What is the ask? Are you looking for a meeting? Are you looking maybe just to exchange information through this platform, through sort of messaging on the platform? And what are you looking to talk about? What are the questions that you're trying to get answered? Well, you can't give them your whole life story. You save more of that for for the conversation that might happen, or for subsequent emails. But this first email needs to be succinct. It needs to be interesting. And what I mean by interesting, it does need to say a little bit about you and who you are and what you've done. And you need to connect yourself to this person in terms of your interests. And that's going to differentiate you from other people who maybe aren't going to take the time to tailor this particular message. We can see here that we've provided sort of other standard or form messages for you, and I'm really going to suggest to try to tailor this and make it more personal to you.
Hey, Nicole.
Yeah.
Mind if I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Just for those who may not have signed on to the platform at this point, we have a question about kind of just how to join, and if you need me to paste a link into the chat, I can do that.
Yep, that would be great, because if you are a current student or an alum from Art, Science, and Engineering, we have uploaded your information into this platform. So the way to join, and if you could provide that person or everyone with that link to join the herd, it's going to ask you for your @tufts.edu email address.
Yeah. And do you typically send people to the People Grove or to the Career Center website?
If they're a student, they should enter from the Career Center website. And if they're an alum, they should enter from the Alumni Career Services website.
Great.
And so I'm going to stop sharing just for a second, because I think it's worth pointing out. Share screen. So here is where you would find the herd on the Career Center website for current undergraduates and graduate students. It is under the, if you go to career, is that showing the actual, is that changing? showing the Career Center website. I need to network.
And then the herd.
Yep, and then the herd. And this is also where you will find tips for, what to say in your messages. More tips on networking, career conversations. And again, I sort of loosely, when I talk about networking, career conversations, I sort of mean the same thing. Let me actually stop sharing this for a moment and then go to, I have to be a good multitasker here.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful because while some of you may have signed up already, I will say my vote for the sign-on process is that it's very intuitive and easy. I found that I was able to do it in just a few minutes. So that's my vote of confidence for that.
And even though I know that I don't think there are alums on the line, if you're an alum, we would prefer that you enter the site from the Alumni Career Services website, which is on the Alumni and Friends website. And you can see here, join the herd. And then we also have our own set of networking resources that are very similar to what's on the student site. So there are lots of resources outside of the herd that can help, that can really help you. Let's see. Oh boy, now I'm stuck in the larger world of Zoom, trying to get back. Hold on. Okay, there we are. Stop sharing. Let me go back into my platform. Share. Okay, where's my herd? There we go. Okay, so here we are back in the sort of messaging, the sending phase of the outreach phase. And you can see that in addition to picking a template with a message, before you hit send, you can also request a meeting. So I'll take a step back and say a lot of times when we're thinking about reaching out to an alum, or when you're in LinkedIn, for example, it's like a game where you're just trying to rack up connections. No, the purpose of this platform is for you to make a connection with someone through to actually meet with someone, to have a phone call, to do a Zoom. It's all remote right now anyway. And so here is Jessica's schedule. She is available on the 22nd to talk by video, not in person, or by phone call. Let's say I select that. There's her dial-in number, and you can suggest how long you want to talk. And you can hit request meeting, and I'm going to cancel that right now. You can also, with that, send along this more tailored message so that she knows who you are and what you want to talk about. So once I've set up a connection with Jessica, then, and actually I'm going to go to Sarah right now, who's a person who I've already had a connection with. Actually, let me go back for a minute. Let me go to my inbox and show you a better example. So Ahmet Hamdi is someone who I have he and I have been talking about the platform, and you can see over here that because he and I have been talking, and we actually haven't done a Zoom, we've only talked through messaging on the platform, but because I have a relationship with him now, I can set up sort of a success plan, so to speak. I can put in some goals, share those goals, with him, see what he thinks. I can put some notes in, and I could also share files with him. And I mentioned this before. I can still also set up meetings with him. I can do a phone call or start a video call right from within this email or this messaging conversation that we have going on here. So that's what I was talking about before in terms of people who I have already sort of started conversing with on the platform. You can really work together on putting some goals down. And that's that's where, you know, you're sort of converting this from just a conversation, from maybe just what might have started out as a transaction, a message, you know, messaging or emailing through the system, into something that's maybe more meaningful for you and for the person that you're talking to. And that's how a relationship might go from a networking relationship. You're now converting it into maybe more of a mentoring relationship, or you're getting, you know, you're really getting to know one another, and you're invested, your mentor, your, you know, the expert or the alum, the teacher in this case, is becoming invested in you and is helping you set up goals, or helping you with things that maybe go beyond what a typical networking relationship would, what we would expect of a typical networking relationship. And so that's another, you know, benefit to this platform. We can do all of this sort of sharing and mentoring in the platform. I'm going to go back, and I wanted to make sure that I am pointing out some of the cool features, or maybe I need to go back to my home, my profile. Oh, no, my hub. Okay. So because I have many different ways to access the platform. I can access as an administrator, I can access as an alum. Sometimes I get a little bit mixed up on which button to press. So I wanted to show you, obviously, the Explore the Community option is where most people are going to go. You know, this is where you can search amongst all users. You can look, you know, specifically by help topic. Who's out there who's willing to talk, you know, who might be offering job shadowing? Who's out there who would do a practice interview with me? I mean, these are such fantastic options that these alums are offering, and this platform makes it even easier by you know, allowing you to do a search by this. We can see 659 alums are offering to do interview prep with you. We can narrow it down by career field. 87 folks, I think, are within, I think I hit marketing and advertising, are open to helping you prepare. So we've got a lot of different ways, and here's the people you've contacted button. Of all of those 87 people, one of them is someone who I've already contacted. So the filtering is great. I think it, you know, definitely is not difficult to do a search amongst the alums who are in here. Another feature I wanted to show you is the groups function, which was just launched recently. So if you're a student who started using this in the fall, we didn't have groups. And right now we have 6 groups. These groups are open to anyone on the platform, and they are basically groups that are either by career field or industry, but also by identity, either cultural identity or sort of student affinity identity. There are 6 right now, and we intend to have 20 overall. Now you'll see things like the Entrepreneurs Network, the Lawyers Network. Even though, for example, we have the Tufts Lawyers Association, this group is not the same as the Tufts Lawyers Association. This group is a network for anyone to join. You can expect that there will be many lawyers from the Tufts Lawyers Association who will be, you know, in that particular group. Same thing with the Finance and Consulting Network. While we do, through Alumni Relations, have a finance network, this group is open to anyone who would like to join, both students and alums. And if we use the Entrepreneurs Network, so this is a place where you can start a discussion that's specifically about entrepreneurship. People can post resources. Members, and again, we just launched these last month. Members can post. We're hoping that alums, alum experts, and staff from the university, from Entrepreneurial Leadership Studies, from the Gordon Institute, will post interesting and useful career resources. We'll also be using this to post events that are both campus and career center oriented, as well as external events. So take a look at groups. You're not necessarily invited to join groups when we onboard you, when you first become a member of the herd. So it's something that we want you to sort of come back to, and you can see we're really looking, I think it's the women's group that has 35 members right now. So we want these to grow, and again, we'll be adding more. The discussion and the resources section are useful. Discussion, people have posted, you know, some really interesting questions, and alums are actively responding. So that's a great place to check for advice, about the platform, to check for just general career advice. Again, I'll go back to advice about the platform. Some folks are talking about how can I best use this platform. Resources, and we're going to start to populate resources more as the Career Center is evolving this summer, and you know, we're going to be launching some really great new resources by career called career communities, and we'll start to add some of those to our resources section here, and you can star the resources to remember them. Let's see, I want to make sure that do we have any questions, Susanna, as I'm looking at my notes?
I don't, none that have come up in the chat. Again, people are welcome to send those to me or to everyone.
Okay. Yeah, and so some of the questions that like came in before the session that maybe I haven't addressed in detail. Let's see. You know, I know that someone had asked this great question. This is sort of like one of the golden questions around networking. How do how do you convert what is sort of a networking or a career conversation from something that is just, you know, you're exploring, you're asking, you know, you're doing career exploration, you're sort of interviewing this alum or this, you know, this person about their career field. How do you then convert that from informational or educational to opportunistic without asking for a job or internship? That's hard, you know. That's a question that's asked, you know, probably one of the most common questions that's asked, you know, within networking, and I think that it's only going to come after you've after the alum that you're networking with has gotten to know you and understands that you are truly interested in his or her work, that you're invested in learning more about their field, about the landscape of their industry, and you know, you understand maybe enough from, maybe it was one conversation you had, or maybe you're in a second conversation, but you know, asking about not just the field, but really homing in on what are the roles that are out there that exist for someone. If you're a current student, well, what are the different opportunities, or what are the different options for internships? If you're a graduating student and you're looking for a job, okay, you're trying to figure out, where do I fit in? What is the role? What is the function? We often focus on the company itself or the industry, but what you really need to be asking about is, where do I fit in? Like, what kind of work could I be doing? And that is a great place to actually to start to tip the conversation toward opportunities. And you could ask questions like, if I wanted to apply for an internship at your organization, you know, I know that I should go online and look for internship openings. If I apply online, is there another way, you know, or a better way that I can get noticed? Would you be open to telling me who the supervisor might be so I could send my documents directly to that person? Maybe you have discovered that the role for you isn't one that is actively being offered on the company website? Well, that's a great question to ask. You know, what I really want to do is this kind of role, and I don't see that opening on your website. When can I expect that kind of opening would be open? What would be vacant? How does your hiring happen? What would be the best way for me to learn about those openings? And so now you're talking about jobs and internships, not just what it would be like to work in the field. And you're asking their advice on how to apply. You're not asking them to help you get an internship or a job. You're not saying, you're not necessarily even saying, would you pass my resume along? What you're asking is, what is their advice on the best way to get noticed beyond the traditional sort of online applicant, tracking system? And that's the best. I think getting that kind of advice on the job search on how to apply directly, advice for how to get noticed, that's converting the conversation. So that's more, I think sort of beyond maybe the scope of this particular webinar, but I did want to address it because it was a question that came in. And I think it's ultimately what people are hoping to learn about, is how to, do I ask for jobs and internships when I'm networking or in a mentoring relationship? And a mentoring relationship is a bit different than a networking relationship. But another question that came in, is it appropriate to ask mentors and volunteers to provide references for jobs and internships? So that's a good question. I think someone who you're networking with is not in a position to be a professional reference for you. There's someone who maybe, they're helping to educate you and advise you about a career field, but they're not in a position to talk about your work. They haven't supervised you. They haven't taught you in a class. So they wouldn't necessarily be a person who could provide a reference. A mentoring relationship is one that is deeper, and hopefully you've cultivated over time, but that person still is not necessarily in a good position to talk about the quality of your work on the job, or talk about, the quality of your work in an academic setting. So, people that you're networking with, people that you're mentoring, are not necessarily the right people to be asking to be your professional references or to write you a letter of recommendation. And while it's tempting because you feel like those people know you, again, references, professional references and letters of recommendation really should be speaking about your experience, either academically or professionally. Let's see, we're at 3:48. Some of the questions that we got before the event were like, how often should I be reaching out to alums? What's the best time of day of the week? Am I going to be annoying them? Should I not be contacting alums who are in leadership positions, executive or older alums? So, what's really interesting is right now, during this time that many of us have been working remotely, and because of COVID, we are seeing high numbers we're seeing a lot of unemployment, and I know that I'm hearing from a lot of alums, they're asking my advice on, should I be reaching out to other alums? Is this the right time? Are people, wanting to help if they need help themselves? And what's interesting and has happened right now is that alums are offering, they're stepping up, they want to help. It could be that an alum has more time on his or her hands because they are unemployed. And while they maybe are conducting a job search, they need to do other things with their time, so that they're not only just doing a job search, they want to be offering to help others. And now that they're re-engaging in a job search, this might be a good time for them to also offer help. And so you're not necessarily annoying an alum by reaching out. And in fact, I'll go back to the whole purpose of the herd, which is this is people who are in the herd. The alums who are in the herd have chosen to be in the herd, to be mentors. I mentioned that there are also many alums in the herd that are in there to be mentees, but most people are there to be both, quite frankly. And so you're not annoying anyone. Time of day, day of week, honestly, people, the rules have changed. It's people are no longer just 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And there are some alums who might prefer to stick to, responding to extracurricular sort of emails on their weekends. And there are alums who will do it during the day because they have time, because they have flexibility and they have autonomy over their schedule. We have alums and students all over the world. So if you think you're, reaching out to someone at 3 a.m., it might not be 3 a.m. their time, right? So I think you could legitimately be reaching out to people at various times of the day, various days of the week. But I would be careful about frequency. You don't want to be tapping an alum too often. You want to send out your first email, which again is succinct, it's interesting, and it shows that you've done your homework, and it says why, what the connection is. And then you want to wait. And again, I mentioned this platform nudges the alums to respond to you. So they should be getting back to you in in a good amount of time. If you don't hear from them, you could send them another reminder. You could message them again, but not, I would probably say, wait a week. Don't contact them if you haven't heard in 72 hours. Don't maybe, or 48 hours. Don't expect necessarily that they're going to be able to get back to you that quickly. So older alums versus younger alums, you should be talking to a range of people. Someone who maybe is closer in age or closer in career stage as you, that is going to be valuable because you're going to, what you're looking for is, to enter a phase or enter a career phase, like an entry-level job, and maybe they're 3 years out and they're sort of just past their entry-level period of time. So that's going to provide, a real sort of glimpse into what your career, what your job search could look like, should look like in the next couple of years, because the person you're talking to just, a couple of years ago conducted their sort of first job search. But that doesn't mean it wouldn't also be value gained from talking to someone who has worked in the field for 25 years. You want to be talking to as many people as possible. To get to get diverse viewpoints. Everyone has different things to offer. You want to be talking to people geographically who are, all over the world. Just because you might be really trying to find a job in Chicago, that doesn't mean that someone in LA or New York or London couldn't help you if they're in the same field. So, you want to start off by being flexible and being open. And then, as you start to narrow in and you start to make decisions around careers and jobs and internships, then you may be narrowing in your focus in terms of the searches that you're doing in the herd. But at first, take advantage of the larger community, because people can offer things, whether it's from an industry perspective, a job function or role perspective, a geographic perspective, even an expertise perspective, the stuff that they're willing to help with. Anyone would almost be able to provide a general mock interview. Ideally, it would be great to have someone conduct a mock interview who's in your field. But if you're looking at something that's very specific and there's not an alum who's offering in that narrow or niche field, then broaden your search there. So those are some of the questions that I think that I maybe didn't address specifically. Any other questions, Susanna?
I don't think so right now, Nicole. But I appreciated what you said about people being there to help, especially the piece about kind of not needing to ask for a job or internship, because I know, as you say, once people know you better, I know I spoke with someone who was interested in higher ed, and she didn't have to ask me to send her job listings. Because I knew her, I started sending her things. She probably
that's nice of you.
Yeah, she probably wanted me to stop, but it's such a good point that it's almost not necessary once people once people know you better.
Yeah. So, I think one of a few last sort of comments before we sort of log off that I wanted to mention. You have the ability to rate your experience in the herd. You can sort of give people 1 to 5 stars, and I've actually been looking because I'm the administrator. I sort of oversee the platform, and I've been looking at all the ratings, and people are being really honest, and there's a lot of people who are getting 4 and 5 stars, both from the mentor and mentee side. So take advantage of that. Please use that rating tool so that we know how these interactions are going. And in some cases, when someone has said, oh, it's been difficult to use the herd, or a conversation didn't go as well because there wasn't, I think the student could have been prepared more. I've interacted with both the alum and the student, to ask them for more feedback. So take advantage of, all the bells and whistles, so to speak, all the options. Provide us feedback by just doing the quick rating, the 4 or 5 star rating on the connection that you've made. Ask for help from career advisors in the Career Center. They definitely, can help you, not just sort of with using the herd itself, but also just sort of the greater, the bigger picture here, which is, networking, how to use this platform for networking, how to use other platforms like LinkedIn and like the alumni directory, which is available on the Tufts Alumni and Friends website. It's basically the database of all Tufts alums, so that you're using all of the possible resources. And let's see. Yeah, those were sort of the final, sort of just the last items that I wanted to mention. And while I don't meet with students, I'll put in a plug for, once again, for Alumni Career Services, which is a lifelong resource offered to you after you graduate, free resources. A lot of alums, when they find out about us, they're kind of amazed that they sort of have resources extended to them for the rest of their life. And we meet with so many alums across all career ages, all career stages, and all ages. I've worked with alums, who graduated in the mid-70s. I'm working with a lot of alums from class of 2020, but they are employed. Many are employed. So this is a resource that is for you for the rest of your life. And it's myself and my colleague, and we work both in the Career Center as well as in alumni relations. So that's about it. I think, well, probably, unless there are any other questions, I want to thank you for your time. And again, this is recorded, so you will be able to find it, hopefully, maybe within a week, on the Career Center YouTube playlist, which we are pretty much uploading all of our webinars this summer too. So thank you very much for tuning in, and feel free to reach out to the Career Center and make an appointment if you have more questions. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. You just posted the YouTube playlist in the chat in case anyone needs that link as well. And continue to pay attention to your e-news, because we keep sending information about upcoming programs. So thanks, everybody. Take care.